of his crew members at East Coast Gridiron. Shout out to every single one of them for putting in the hard work from Senior Bowl, scouting, to the scouting combine. These guys have been killing it. And one of my really good close friends, he's been absolutely killing it, man, giving the best content around for his network. And so joining us, Dante Sell. So before we go into a little more of the NFL draft analysis, because you guys have been putting in the work with the best analysis that we can, and it's honestly educating myself and all my audiences what to really look out for some of these players. Well, let's start with the NFL free agency. Dude, this was nuts only in day one. And I'm already seeing contracts. This was safeties, corners galore, and then it became guards. That many guards getting signed is a sign to say there's only 3 I trust in this draft, and that's it. It's not a whole lot of them. It's only tackles. So to kind of recap, what was your thoughts on it on this immaculate day one of free agency?
Man, this was honestly one of those free agencies where it's like, all right, I think people are nipping at the bud to get the guy that they need for their team absolutely set in place. Regardless if, like the Saquon Barkley thing for me is like, all right, he still has some injury concerns and things like that, but what is the best way to, I'm going to put a snake analogy here. What's the best way to have the snake bite his tail? Go to a team within your division, right? So, the Eagles signing Saquon Barkley, it's either going to work really well for them or it's going to fall flat on their face. So I've seen a lot of teams kind of taking a shot in the dark and seeing what they got. I think one of the most interesting ones that I think everybody saw it coming, but when it happens in reality, you really start thinking about the possibilities of what else that they're going to do, especially in the draft. Is Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons? Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely. I think it's a great spot. I don't think that they're going to have buyer's remorse because I'm one of the Kirk Cousins defenders. Like, you play on a team sport, regardless of what people say, it doesn't show up for prime time. Well, I remember last year when Justin Jefferson was getting locked up by Darius Slay when they played the Eagles in prime time I think it was a Thursday night game. That wasn't a Kirk Cousins issue. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think Kirk Cousins with the Falcons, with Drake London and all those boys out there, they are one draft pick away from trading up to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. And if it happens, you heard it from me first.
I mean, good God, yeah, it's going to be incredible. And like I said, I would love to have Kirk Cousins' agent as my agent. I mean, good God, $100 million guaranteed.
Hey, get your money.
Good God, it's like, how does this agent even do this? How does he even how does he even negotiate this well to give, NFL owners and general managers a guaranteed money like that? It's insanity. But
I don't know if it's one of those things where some of these GMs they're just so analytically and data savvy that they see kind of like what I see, like 4,000 yards a year, 30 touchdowns a year. You're going to get the production and you're going to, ultimately they're going to try to build their defense up. I think tomorrow is going to be Falcons Day tomorrow, in my humble opinion, but I think they're going to try to look for DJ Reader to come out of this. Like, I think he was one of the best defensive tackles over the last 2 seasons, and he might be a Falcon, and they automatically upgraded that position too. So it's like, it might be a sneaky NFC championship type caliber team. And I think the Vikings are going to be like, we might have messed up, by blaming this all on Kirk every single year. But
well, the only thing that can make that up is unless you go and draft one of 3 players. You either draft JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, or Michael Penix, in my opinion. Because if you want to make this right, especially when it comes to Justin Jefferson, I mean, you got to get the guy that's going to be willing to make those throws. I trust Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a great offensive coordinating coach. And I think he could really work with quarterbacks. That's why I'm like, you put Bo Nix in this, he's going to love wanting to play for this offense. This offense is loaded outside of running back. That's the only thing that, Minnesota I could think of. But
I've been defending Bo Nix, and you've seen the channel. I defended Bo Nix all last year. I'm still defending him in the offseason. I don't know why people are so low on the kid, man. I really don't understand. And he's one of the better fits for the Vikings. But now you mentioned Michael Penix Jr. I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan. I need to see him throw more. And you're going to go to a throwing style offense with Kevin O'Connell is going to throw that thing 80% of the time.
Mhm.
Who's the guy that can sling the rock? He's been doing it his whole career in college, and I've kind of turned a leaf on too. Is Michael Penix Jr. That is a perfect fit for the Vikings. Vikings fans are going to hate it because he's not a mobile quarterback. He can get mobile. He's more mobile than Kirk, but he's not that much a notch below what Kirk Cousins is going to give you. But I mean, if you're looking for youth and, at least to have a little bit of moxie, has that championship mentality. I mean, Kirk Cousins wasn't in any type of championship team, even with Michigan State. So let's be honest there. But a guy that's just come off a national championship that's going to have a little bit of chip on his shoulder, has had some injury issues in the past, and people still question him, and he hadn't been injured in 2 years. Like, if you want to get that guy, it's Michael Penix Jr. that might have a lot to prove at the next level, and Justin Jefferson is going to love that guy because he's going to get it to him 100% of the time. he's not gonna worry about getting 8 to 10 catches a game if he can.
Man, I think people would probably think I'm crazy, but like if I looked at Michael Penix in Minnesota, I'm almost looking at an inverted Dante Culpepper because I think we kind of remembered how much of a pocket presence he was at the time. Yes, he can run out the pocket and create open spaces, and thank God he had Randy Moss. But I feel like Penix, because he's a beautiful, pure thrower of the ball, I mean, and he's comfortable. I think the other thing, what's crazy that people don't talk about is look at how quickly his ball release is. I think he started learning how to get the ball out at the right time before pressure starts coming at his face. And so I think as he started learning that with Kalen DeBoer's system in Washington, he started to get better with that. And I think that is definitely NFL caliber stuff because you want guys that are just going to be able to snap it, make a quick throw decision, and they're able to move out and be able to make that pocket. I could see him be an absolute throwing machine when I've got Jordan Addison and I've got I've got Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's going to be a ridiculous highlight reels for like weeks.
Yeah, he's got an incredible arm, and that's one thing I'll never dock him for. But on the other side, I evaluate this stuff. I try to give everybody the fairest chance when it comes into the draft, and even point out little things that people are not saying. And Jake, I'm not the one that's going to go to the consensus number one and say that Caleb Williams is the absolute number one. My number one quarterback in this draft is Sam Hartman. Like, I don't know why people don't see what they see, what I see, but I break down the film and I'm like, the dude's the best, most pro-ready quarterback. But to go back to Michael Penix Jr. and his throwing motion and everything, you're right. It comes out quick. It's strong. The only problem I have is how much he winds up on the throw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he throws the football like a baseball player. And some of those short routes go straight in the dirt. And that's because he's throwing it like a baseball. You know what I'm saying? And he was a baseball player. So I'm not a big fan of people changing throwing motions and things when they get into the NFL because that guy's been throwing like that for all his life and it's worked. So you can tweak a couple things. Maybe you can get the point on the ball to kind of be upward a little bit. There's little things that you can work on with him, but everything that you said is absolute evaluation, like absolute right evaluation. It comes out quick, it comes out strong, and you better put on 5 gloves on one hand because your hands are going to be burning when you catch the pass. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. So on my show, I did a segment and I brought this out, which was my very first. It was my top 10, and my top 10 featured NFL draftees because after watching them in college football and then watching them in the combine, kind of gave me a little bit of a different evaluation. So just listen to this because this is my top 10 that I have, and kind of get your opinion up on there and think of what your best top 10 is. So my number 10, Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. That kid has great explosiveness. I think many owners are going to look at that and say, once the ball is in his hands, he's got perfect cuts, and he's also got perfect explosiveness where he could turn on the burners by the time he's got an open hole. That's going to be problems for opposing defenses. Number 9, Quinion Mitchell. I think he's going to be this year's Tariq Woolen in the draft because he is such a ball hawk. And he's somebody that, by the way, he caused a lot of problems for wide receivers to even like get open and even making catches contested. He caused a lot of those problems, and because he knows how to cover them and he knows how to make the perfect block.
How
Number
about we
8.
do this? Let's go back to your number 10. How about you say the positive and I'll give one negative that I see for all of them, just to be fair, just to balance it out. So
That'll work. That'll work. So,
Jalen Wright,
yeah.
not enough carries in college. Quinyon Mitchell played at Toledo, had problems in the Senior Bowl, but he's one of those get better as he goes throughout the game. That's what I see for him.
All right. So my next one, Byron Murphy out of Texas. I think the kid is an absolute run stuffer. And I also do think that he also does great on line shifts, especially when you get defenses that have to collapse the run. I think he's great at that.
Yep. Not a lot of bad things about Byron Murphy. I think the thing that I'll say about him is I would love to see him slim down a little bit and get a little bit quicker in the NFL, because that's his main thing. I think he's a little slow getting off the snap, but outside of that, you got the strength and everything. He's got a complete package to be great.
Hell, sign him up for a really good dietitian. He'll be perfect in there.
Don't do Jordan Davis. Do Aaron Donald.
Right. Number 7, Olu Fashanu. I like this kid a little bit more because I do think now the 2 tackles between him and Joe Alt, I think what he does provide, he is certainly not a Mekhi Becton. He has the build, but he is nothing like Mekhi Becton. If you actually looked at Drew Aller at Penn State, dude, how clean was his pocket? I mean, he provided so much power to where enough of the power from the lower body down, like he's able to match up with any type of power, any type of speed, and allow a beautiful, clean pocket, whether it's the run or it's the quarterback that he's got to protect his blind side. I mean, Penn State has actually been really, really good, drafting a lot of these offensive linemen.
Yeah, Olu Fashanu is definitely a prospect that everybody's a little high on. The thing I'll say about him is he does great in every game, but he didn't do great against Michigan and Ohio State, which are the 2 best teams in that division. So I wonder if he can handle a bunch of Penn States and Ohio States or Michigan and Ohio States at the next level. That's the only thing with him. I think he struggles a little bit with really fast defensive ends, but his strength will make up for that at the next level. But we'll see. That's the only knock I've always had on him is like, why don't you show up in those games, but you show up in everything else?
I mean, honestly, I would not see him as a bad fit with the Jets. I would not see him as a bad fit even for, if you look at the Vikings or even if you look at a couple other teams as well. But, I think he definitely would plug in there for the tackle position. But number 6, here's what's crazy. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but I'm sure you got answers for this guy. Joe Milton at Tennessee. The reason I think here's my thought about this. The guy throws a beautiful deep ball, which not a lot of people really talk about. And Tennessee actually produced 2 really good quarterbacks from Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton. I think the staff there has done a really good job with quarterback development. That's why I'm excited about the next one they have. But I think he does throw a really good deep ball. I think that if you put him in the right system where he's smart when it comes to throwing the deep ball, because you don't want him to be reckless. You don't want him to be overly reliant. But the other thing, like J.J. McCarthy, he can also throw in tight windows. I think if you've got the right scenario, if you got the offensive line, especially tackle, I think Joe Milton will definitely thrive with this.
Yeah, Joe Milton. I love Joe Milton. Like, I just think that there's some things he can tweak. Strong arm, no question. Can put the ball on the money. I mean, I've seen him make some incredible throws that nobody talks about from last year. Things I have to account for. The offensive line wasn't very good. The running game, they were switching 3 running backs at the time. That's why I was saying about Jalen Wright. He didn't get a bunch of snaps. But one thing he can improve on that'll automatically up his stock is if he can throw an anticipatory throw on while the guy is trying to get to his spot to lead him into a good spot. That's the only thing he's missing from his game. He's got everything else. Played in a pro-style offense with Josh Heupel, who was a former Heisman candidate back in his day with Oklahoma. People tend to forget about that. But you're absolutely right. He does come from a very quarterback-friendly place. And that's why everybody that'll be under Josh Heupel, and that's why the names that came from there, people know their names because he can develop them. So
see, this is why you can't shut out the SEC. They've been known for pro-style players, and I mean, regardless, Tennessee or Georgia or a lot of places, SEC, you're like, oh yeah, you're the real thing. Number 5, Liatula 2. I think the kid, he's got something on him. I think he's matched up really good with speed. He's got enough power. The one film study I looked at, because especially speaking of Caleb Williams, Latu gave him fits. I mean, that game against USC, UCLA, their defense was all over the Trojans. But I don't think he's as close to like a Micah Parsons level, but he is kind of close in that category because I do trust his power. I also do trust a little of his elusiveness to get past offensive linemen because he is the kind, he'll sniff out the quarterback and he'll also find a way to stop the run and be that secondary run stuffer as well. I think that kid is going to be sneaky good if he goes to a really good defensive core.
Yeah, Latu has been one of my favorite players over the last couple of years. Him and the Murphy brothers that were there at UCLA, and they all kind of do similar stuff. The thing about Latu that I see that gets him in a lot of trouble is his 100% is not consistent. And what I mean by that, he could be 100% on one play, totally clear, one of the left tackles or right tackles. Then the next play, he's so 100% that he trips over himself and makes a mistake, or it gets blown up from a tight end, and we're giving the tight end more credit than we're giving Latu for just going hard. So I think that could be easily cleaned up at the next level with a good outside linebacker coach. And I think that's where he can fit most is outside linebacker instead of like a true defensive end because he's got enough speed to drop back in coverage. I'd love to see that a little bit more on him, but he's definitely a project and could turn out to be a top 10 edge rusher. I would say probably like a TJ Watt can just do it all. I would love to see that from him.
I like that. That's actually a really, really good comp. Number 4, Brock Bowers. The reason I say that is because he is a generational tight end. Since his freshman year at Georgia, 13 touchdown catches. Okay, the kid is proven he could be the best at yards after the catch. His strength and I think a little bit of his run blocking could use a little bit of some help, but he's got the hands. He's got the capability to get open, especially midfield attacker. That's the one thing I love about Brock Bowers, which is why I look at the Chargers and I look at a couple teams that need a tight end. This guy, how could you not pass? How could you not end up taking this guy? They pass him? I don't know what to explain about that.
It's the most perfect fit for the Chargers, but unfortunately, I feel like they might move into a different direction. Logically, it seems like he would be the guy. I'm gonna just go ahead and say Brock Bowers is my number 1 guy. For sure. Like it's not close. It's not close for me. Brock Bowers is the most generational player that I've seen in a very long, as far as like a skill position player, like the way that the tight end position is becoming. He can block really well as he can catch. He can catch as well as he can run. He can run as well as he can run routes. Like you have to consider that he is a game-changing type of player because he takes care of so many different things on the checkbox for an offense by himself. So it's almost like having 13 players out there versus 11. If the Chargers pass up on him, I'd be very sad for you, Jake, because I know that you're a Chargers fan. Please don't let him fall to the Jaguars, whatever you do. But Brock Bowers is an absolute tank. And the injury that he had to his ankle where he came back 3 weeks later when they said that he was supposed to be out for the season, the dude has got the super soldier serum. I don't know how he came back that soon. That was the only reason he didn't win the Mackey for a record-setting 3rd time. Like they should have just gave him the award just based off of how dominant that he is when he's out there.
Oh yeah, pure toughness, and at the same time, the other thing that I also looked at is his explosiveness. Once he has the ball in his hand, that dude's got no explode on him. He's running.
You would think it's Justin Jefferson running out there. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
At his size, I'm so surprised he even carries all that.
I'm gonna make a hot take. He might be the best tight end of all time if he stays healthy.
Just don't.
I'm that confident in it, Jake. Like he might not put up the stats that Travis Kelce put up, but he's definitely going to be the best 2-way tight end of all time. I can mark it right now. He's got my vote. I don't even need to see him play no more.
So number 3, and here was another thing that even for the Chargers pick, which seemed very, very intriguing and yet very tempting. Malik Neighbors at LSU. Wide receiver university. I mean, do I need to say more? They know how to draft NFL caliber wide receivers. What I like about Malik Neighbors is that he is very creative in some of his routes, but he's also somebody that can catch both contested and in tight windows. Because even if it's a very he can make nothing out of he can make something out of nothing. That's how good his talent is. The only thing I worry about is that maybe there's a little bit of his craft of his routes might be a little bit too carried away, especially if you're facing against like a Sauce Gardner or you're facing off against a Christian Gonzalez. That might be one thing that you may have to kind of change some things up there. But there's no question this kid's going to be very remarkable. But depending on, the Chargers, the Giants, there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking for really good receivers like that.
Yeah, I couldn't give a negative for Brock Bowers, but I can't give a negative for Malik Neighbors. I started to catch onto his game a little bit later. That's why I go back and watch the game film so much, because it's those little things that you don't see. And I will say I was lower than some people on Malik Neighbors than others, and now I'm like, okay, I start to see it. And there's a lot of people that are actually putting him above Marvin Harrison Jr. on their boards as well, which is kind of nutty. But if you watch the film, he's that creative. He's a very creative route runner. I had thought that he was just a vertical guy. That's all he was good at. And that's not necessarily the truth with him. He can get the ball. Second level speed is second to none. The only issues that I have with him still is that I think he can get a little bit ahead of himself when those stats start going up and he starts to make those little mistakes like dropping an open pass. But not like the Xavier Worthy, but more so on Malik Neighbors. So Malik Neighbors is absolutely the number 2 wide receiver in this draft, though. But from his production and what he's done on the field, I'm not even mad at people that have him number 1 now. I mean, you can make an argument for it. He's that good.
Yeah, absolutely. Saigon, if you really want to know the thoughts on Brock Bowers, rewind it back about a few minutes. We talked about it earlier. We're moving on to number 2. And number 2 that I honestly do think, there has been talks about, Buffalo lost Gabe Davis. I'm looking at number 2 at Rome Odunze. I love the kid's work ethic. When I watched him at the combine, the guy was pissed when it came to the time, but it's because he wants to constantly get better. I like that. But the other thing is, people don't realize this, that at Washington, nobody usually pays attention to this stuff. But if you haven't paid attention to Rome Odunze's game, Rome Odunze is the reason Washington's offense was so lethal. Yes, Michael Penix's really good. But if you didn't have a Rome Odunze in your offense, that was going to be completely different. I like the kid's work ethic. I think the other thing that I kind of worry about a little bit is there's a little bit of lack of creativity with his routes, because it almost kind of feels like, what is he, a deep ball receiver? Yeah. Or is he, or is he somebody that, like, if you get him to, like, for instance, like the Chargers, if you give him next to, Keenan Allen, who's one of the best route runners in the league, you could probably shape him up this way. But I do love his abilities. I think it's a little bit close, if not a little better than Malik Neighbors, but I really do love this kid's work ethic.
Yeah, Rome is one of those guys that I want to love so bad when I watch his film. Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, those other 2 receivers, were just as good. And I feel like Rome overshadows them a lot. But the one thing I can say about Rome is, and I'm willing to say this, out of everybody in this class, he's the best hands catcher that's out there. He doesn't catch with his body. He will extend for plays. And like you said, his route running is not all that great. He has trouble getting separation. But when he's open and the ball is thrown to him, I love a receiver that's going to try to put his body on the line to try to get that pass, because he understands that, like, the more catches that you complete, the more chances that you're going to get later on in the game and be reliable. And that coach is going to stick on the stat sheet. When it comes to the fourth quarter, you need a big play to be made. I don't care if he's triple covered, throw it to Rome. He's that type of dude. So I don't know how people are going to evaluate that. And I've also seen people have Malik Neighbors and Rome kind of on the same status as, I mean, you've probably seen that too, where it's kind of just been switching back and forth on who, who's who.
Yep.
I'd say Malik is a little better, but this is a good wide receiver class. I
Oh my
think that's
God.
what you could say.
Oh God, the wide receiver class, even all the way from like rounds 2 and 3. I mean, it's so loaded. I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna get what you're gonna get. And so my number one is JJ McCarthy. The reason I'm high on it is because I watched this kid playing at Michigan, which was an absolute blessing to Jim Harbaugh because he moves off of Shea Patterson and you get JJ McCarthy, who is a game changer. And I think he's honestly a game manager of like, pressure's on and you're in the big game, you're going to deliver the big throws. I mean, especially when you watch him with Roman Wilson and you watch him even with that big tight end that they have. Michigan was so good at that. They were dirty. They were gritty. They were very much, the team that was in the trenches. JJ McCarthy, because he had a great coach in Jim Harbaugh, you put him with a Sean Payton, you put him with a Kevin O'Connell, you put him with somebody that is honestly going to elevate his game even more. Because think about it, that loss to TCU that could have gotten them into the Natty, that was heartbreaking. But he didn't bury his head in the sand. He got better. He started to realize, hey, we've got to be playing for something, because if the Big Ten and the NCAA are going to be against us at Michigan, we're going to give them the finger and show them, hey, don't count us out. And I think JJ McCarthy does have that ethic, and he does have the mentality of he's more than just a college quarterback. I think he's one that you put him in a really good roster with a really good coach, you're going to maybe potentially get a really good NFL winning caliber quarterback. And for somebody who's won the Natty the year after the year after he tried to get it against TCU, but then lost. I mean, I can't name any other player who could build that much resiliency and be that damn good at his position.
JJ, I have a love-hate relationship for sure. Your number one is very controversial to me, but hey, that's why you brought me on, right? To talk about this stuff.
Yep.
So JJ McCarthy to me, and I've tried to give him, like, I'm literally sitting at the airport before the combine trying to point out things that I really love about him. The things that I really love about JJ is he can have an accurate arm. He will make the throw to the open guy, which sounds a lot more simpler than what is actually put out there. But how many times have you seen a quarterback that should have thrown the open pass to the obvious guy that's sitting there and they don't? So he's going to take his chance to the open guy all day, and he's a great teammate. Everything else, though, throwing 8 passes against Penn State when your rushing game was so good, throwing 3 interceptions against Bowling Green, people try to sweep that under the rug too. Not you, but just Michigan fans in general. This is what I always struggle with them. Is like, guys, this was a very not good team, and he threw 3 really bad interceptions. Doesn't change the fact that yes, he's a winner. Only lost one game, and that was against TCU. The guy can lead a team and do all that stuff. The things that I struggle with, though, like between the X's and O's, the arm strength is a little questionable at times. I think I counted Roman Wilson about 12 times where he had to adjust for a short arm pass. The outside the number throws on his backside, I don't believe that he can make an accurate pass. And then here's one thing. I don't know if it's a Jim Harbaugh offensive coaching thing or is it a JJ McCarthy thing. He would throw backside outside the numbers, but it would be low and the guy can adjust for it. Once the knee's down, it is what it is. Yeah. I don't know if that's a JJ thing that he can't make the pass or that's what he was asked to do. Positives about JJ. The one big positive, I think that he can be a great quarterback in the NFL if he sits behind a veteran and learns what they do the right way. And that just becomes he doesn't have enough reps for me to totally trust somebody like I don't care what anybody says. Bo Nix, yeah, he started the most quarterbacks out of everybody in college football history, but people would like to say that, oh, he went from the SEC to the Pac-12, but at the end of the day, he did play there and he did beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. And people want to sweep that under the rug like he didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to see him throw the ball more. I want to see him be more consistent because at the combine, I was like, ugh. When Devin Leary has a better day than the consensus like first round guy that should be there, are you going to end up like the Anthony Richardson reach where we still don't know what Anthony Richardson is? Or are you going to be able to go? Well, I see Dana put in the chat that Jacoby Brissett went to New England, which is a great thing for them. Can you go to New England and be that fill-in guy and wait for your time and learn from Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi? Because I believe you had a skill set to do so. The thing that's so attractive about him, though, outside of the ladies that might say his looks, is is his running ability. You know, he's creative, but he's a smart runner, and I love that about him. I love that he's quick for his size, and he beefed up a lot too before the combine. When Hayden was with me, I was like, JJ gained some weight. All that weight issue stuff that we were talking about before is totally thrown out the window. He's absolutely the right size now too. So, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with JJ, but I think in the future, I think there's more positives for him if he continues on that path that I'm talking about. If they throw him into the Wolves right away, JJ might not have the best of careers. And I don't want to see him go to Jim Harbaugh. I've heard that people are talking about trading Justin Herbert because of all the draft capital that they can get for him and then putting JJ in there. No, you stay with Justin because you know what you got versus what JJ you don't know what you got right now. You know, so
yeah, I've never paid attention at all of like, you know, people saying, oh, JJ's gonna go to the Chargers. How? Like, and I would not even risk it because, first of all, you already have a franchise quarterback. Why would you even want to entertain the thought? That is interesting with New England. Now, I get the idea. Jacoby Brissett comes back to New England. There's a bridge quarterback right there. But the only thing that concerns me is they just moved off of a defensive coach for another one in Gerard Mayo. I don't know what he's going to basically do. He may turn around and he might end up fooling me. He may end up being really good of a mentor with these young guys and be somebody that Belichick should have been if he was not stubborn and one-dimensional. I think that, you know, then things would have definitely changed. We would have had a different thought. But
it's interesting that you say that the one-dimensional stuff because I think he tried to get out of that with Cam Newton. It seemed like that. Let's try something. I think if Cam Newton was at the Patriots before, he would have had just as good as a career, if not better, with the Patriots. But they had Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? So you can't teach an old dog new tricks this far in his career. You know what was it? 8 Super Bowls or something ridiculous like that. Like, you tried a little bit too late for sure.
So my quick one, because next year's quarterbacks, I think is going to be pretty interesting. I don't believe we're going to have a quarterback class like what we got this year, respectfully. But I'm watching college quarterbacks for next season. I'm really excited to see what Dylan Gabriel will do in Oregon with Dan Lanning, because honestly, Dan Lanning has really had a really good luck with a lot of these quarterbacks, from Justin Herbert to Bo Nix to now Dylan Gabriel. He's had such a good luck with it. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, I count them to be a top 10 team next year because with the NIL and the transfer portal, I mean, Lane Kiffin got an overhaul, defensive, offensive players. Ole Miss is going to be a team that's going to be knocking on the door in the SEC. And then I also watched too. Quinn Ewers is going to be back. Hopefully, if you give me another year of that productivity with Sark, then maybe I could think about Quinn Ewers possibly, you know, transitioning into the NFL level like that. Because beforehand, I thought he was too wild. I felt like he definitely played like a Texan. He played wild. He played like his own game. He cleaned it up last year. And then the other quarterback, love your thoughts on this. There's two quarterbacks.
Mhm.
Will Howard to Ohio State. And you know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I didn't think Kyle McCord was really that bad of a quarterback. I didn't think so. I just felt like it was Michigan's year. They were on a mission. People wanted Ryan Day out so bad. And I'm like, well, timeout. Ohio State is a great program. Why
Oh,
would
I
you
was
even
one of them that wants him. I want him going. I just want to.
But here's my
Dude,
thing. It's one thing that if it's one thing to lose to Michigan than it is you are losing to Michigan State or you're losing to Citadel or one of those teams. That's
yeah,
because if you were, we would then have that discussion of, okay, Ryan Day is clearly off his skis. He can't do this because that's unacceptable if you're losing to teams in your conference outside of Michigan. That's
yeah.
unacceptable. But at the same time, Will Howard, I think he's a very much of a pocket presence quarterback. I didn't think Kyle McCord was that bad of a quarterback, but now he's in Syracuse. But I think Will Howard with the offensive coordinator that he has, I think he's definitely bound for big things. Emeka Egbuka, who I think really is going to be interesting as a wide receiver in his next year, but they do have another one that's going to be coming up. Ohio State's one to look at. But then Caleb Williams, who's going to be drafted. I love their in-house successor, Miller Moss. Because the reason I say this is because it is one thing. If you had a quarterback in-house who threw 3 touchdown passes, right? But then comes away and then throws 2 picks, then we'd be like, I'm not sure about this quarterback we have. This kid threw 6 touchdowns and 1 pick. I'm kind of thinking to myself, yeah, that's a little more of Lincoln Riley. I can see his identity up on this.
Yeah.
So, I think next year's quarterbacks, it's going to be pretty interesting, you think?
I actually love the quarterback class that's going to be in there next year. I actually talked about this earlier with somebody. They're like, well, the quarterback class this year is so good, it's not going to be like that next year. And I'm like, hold your horses. Okay. So here's the thing. You've had a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. You've had Bo Nix has been in college forever. You've had Caleb Williams, who just came off a Heisman. You got, all these guys that have so many different storylines around them. Michael Penix Jr. coming off with 2 injuries and being, watching a national championship. This is a rare class because all of these guys have had success in their own right, and they all have this great storyline. Sam Hartman, I think he's top 5 in yards ever in college football history. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot to talk about here. But what people don't understand is that some of the most consistent quarterbacks that are coming out are going to be in next year's class.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel, I'll tell you this, Jake. Hawaii has been producing so many good football players that we don't give enough credit for. And if people think that he's going to go to Oregon and be closer to family, be closer to home, and be with Dan Lanning did the smart thing here. Dante Moore came from UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Gabriel committed, and then a couple days later, it was Dante Moore. And Dante Moore, there was a couple I think on Twitter there was some little animosity between Dylan Gabriel. Like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think Dylan Gabriel is going to step up to the plate and be like, I might be the old man on campus, and you still the young pup that's still learning. I'm going to take this out. I think the second transfer portal period before the season starts, Dante Moore is going to transfer out and go to Michigan. That's just a bold prediction for me.
Ooh.
But the one guy that you mentioned, man, Will Howard, nobody had him on Ohio State's radar other than this guy.
Hey, I thought about him going to Ohio because I started saying, as the line started to really balance, I was like, this just makes too much perfect sense. It makes
they were talking
perfect
about
sense.
him going to USC and all other places,
Oh yeah, no.
going down to Alabama. It was crazy, but nobody mentioned Ohio State. And I'm like, he just seems like an Ohio State quarterback. Everything that you wanted Kyle McCord to be last year, he's a risk taker, can throw the ball downfield, can use his legs in a smart way. And he's a bigger guy. He'll be able to take a little bit more of the hits there. And he's just a commanding piece of what Kansas State did last year, which went unnoticed. They've won so many games because of his prowess at quarterback. Ohio State get in that, they're going to cook. I said that Ohio State is right now, they are my national championship favorite. I think that they got all the tools. Chip Kelly going there and being their offensive coordinator, they just have the tools for success. Miller Moss, I love that kid, man. Lincoln Riley being there and what he did, I was like, I'm already sold. He commanded that offense. Caleb Williams being the absolute leader of that team, of every team that he's been on, even from Oklahoma up till USC, everybody knew who the guy was. And Miller Moss came in there and said, hold my beer. I got you guys back as well. And he utilized all the weapons. I mean, we're talking about Zachariah Branch, Brendan Rice, Taj Washington. Like the list goes on how many receivers that, and he utilized all of them and then more. That's what they need. That's what they need. And they're going to cook next year. And I don't even question Lincoln Riley when it comes to quarterbacks anymore. I mean, how many Heisman winners or Heisman finalists has a dude had at this point? Why do we still questioning if the dude can still coach? Nobody's saying that
didn't just one get the bag for 3 years over 100 million.
Baker Mayfield, one of the most underrated guys, man. I've been saying for years that Baker Mayfield was a starter. He just need to go to the right place.
Yeah.
The skills that he teaches, at least the quarterback, he might not have the best team success. And now that he got away from Alex Grinch, maybe that defense will be a little better, which is the one thing that was holding it back. Yep. But you can't question the fact that the dude can develop quarterbacks. He's a quarterback whisperer, man. I mean, imagine if you were a coach and you had 2 Heisman winners back to back, like, and kids that transferred to your school that weren't there originally with you. Mm-hmm. And then you had another one who was a finalist. And then the year after that, you got another one that's a Heisman. You would be annoyed as hell if somebody said that you weren't the quarterback guy and you had nothing to do with their success.
Yeah,
so and I feel Lincoln Riley on that.
And this is the thing, is that if I'm producing Heisman caliber quarterbacks, I'm doing something right. USC fans need to be patient. They need to take it down because, first of all, USC is going to be in the playoffs. Okay. With this expansion playoff, there's a guarantee USC is going to get there. It was only a matter of time. But again, I understand the drought and I understand, the impatiency with, the program and all the rest of it. But if you're doubting that much of Lincoln Riley, then why the hell did you even encourage him coming back to USC, rejuicing, revamping this program to get it back to where it once was when Pete Carroll coached it, and he had his line of teams. It's like
Sarkisian was there; he didn't do anything.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Like people tend to forget. Like they should be thanking Lincoln Riley for even we weren't even mentioning USC as a credible team for years. Like you said, ever since Pete Carroll was there, for years we just ignored that USC was even a team. Yeah. Now that he comes there, gets him a Heisman winner, brings all these recruits. Zachariah Branch is like an amazing wide receiver for them. There's a reason why he wears number 1. He's going to be the number 1 guy there next year. Like these dudes are back on the map, and they were just one defensive coordinator away, and he got rid of his buddy. That, hey, I respect the loyalty all day, but when changes need to be made, they have to be made, So we're going to see, man. And they're going to a stronger conference. Mm-hmm. This is not playing Colorado, who had a brand new coach that's trying to figure out their stuff. Like you're going to go play Ohio State, Michigan. Northwestern was in the Big Ten championship a couple years ago. People tend to forget, and they had a better season. Like these are no pushovers. Purdue can upset you whenever they want to. They're known to upset teams. Like it's going to be crazy. And you're bringing over some in town. So your old conference rivals over in Washington and UCLA and Oregon. Like you still got to worry about the some of the strongest teams that were over there. So it ain't going to be a cakewalk now. And either Lincoln Riley is going to die with USC or he's going to succeed.
Yes.
He's going to be forced to do one or the other.
I honestly think he's going to succeed in this because if you actually think about it, what was the one conference that actually blew a lot of people away when it came to quarterback play, when it came to offensive weaponry? The Pac-12 literally surprised a lot of people.
And isn't it crazy that they dissolved that conference after this year, man?
It died right in front of us. And that's why I was like, enjoy.
It was like their farewell tour.
Because you're not going to get this ever again.
It was the best farewell tour in college football history. It was like, we did what we could. Peace out, guys. We even got you guys in the national championship. Wow.
I mean you know what? That's a great farewell tour, man. But at the same time, it's like,
It's
it's a
sad.
love-hate relationship. It's like you took this thing for granted. You had great quarterbacks for years and years between Leinart and Joey Harrington and Dennis Dixon and like a lot of these Pac-12 quarterbacks. I mean,
Mhm.
it was so great, but we really will miss, the Pac-12 as a whole, but I do think that there's
They had the
many,
best
many.
logo for the conference in the college football history. That Pac-12 logo, you know me, I'm a graphics guy, so
Mhm.
the
Oh,
the Pac-12 logo is burnt in my brain now, so I'll never forget.
So, real quickly before letting you go, so I know you've always been, like Jacksonville guy.
Yeah.
Mac Jones backing up Trevor Lawrence. When in the hell did we see this? Now, again, I feel bad for Mac Jones because it felt like it was a 70-30 thing where 70% of this was Belichick's doing because, first of all, you let Matt Patricia be an offensive coordinator for this team who's clearly a defensive guy. That really messed things up. But they also said there was some toxicity in the locker room involving Mac Jones. So does this kind of feel like with him backing up Trevor Lawrence, is this a little bit of a humbling moment for him? Because again, you go from a school in Alabama, people are looking at you like you're the next big thing. You're smart. You've done this before. I mean, the same way we looked at Bryce Young, the same way that we looked at Tua. So does this kind of feel like that for Mac Jones? It's a little bit of a come down to earth moment. And is he going to basically be a backup, or could there be potentially a bridge job ahead of him?
So we're talking about the most efficient season in college football history came from Mac Jones. Guess who tied him this year? Bo Nix. They're sitting right there at the top at number one. I just had to throw that in there because I always thought that was a cool stat.
Yeah.
I think I was the only Jacksonville Jaguars fan in America that actually loved the move. We got him for a 6th round pick. And I always say, man, look at all the teams that do really well. Look how strong their quarterback rooms are.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Ravens. Say what you want. Tyler Huntley is a great backup, and he's a carbon copy of what a poor man's Lamar Jackson, right? But he's a great teammate and he knows a position. And he will always keep Lamar on his toes and always can simulate that offense the best that he can to make sure that all those players are prepared. Same thing is what's going to happen with Mac Jones. I don't care about the locker room stuff. I don't know. We're not in those 4 walls, whatever. The players never really said anything. That's just he says, she says stuff because they suck for years. And when a team sucks, then all the excuses come out, right? Whenever a team succeeds, you never hear about anything bad. So, but Mac Jones had a couple of injuries. Then you bring Bailey Zappi in, you just don't know who that number one guy was going to be, and then you confuse it. It's kind of like you owning a pet, and you've had your cat for 12 years, and you start introducing new cats to that cat like every week. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course
Yeah.
he's going to be a little confused and like, what's next? Like, it's the same thing. Like, he's not familiar with anything. What he's going to get from the Jaguars is a familiar place where he's going to be the backup, but he's also going to have that moxie enough to keep Trevor Lawrence on his toes. Trevor Lawrence hasn't felt any pressure of that. I'm not saying that he's going to challenge for his job, but he's going to bring that intensity to that quarterback room that CJ Beathard was not going to pull. CJ Beathard knew that he was going to be a backup, and he knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be a starter. We're talking about 2 guys that were in the same draft class.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That are going to be there. They're going to support each other. They have a familiar. They both had a familiar goal. We're both young. We both know that we should be starters somewhere. But you mess up Trevor, unfortunately, I think I can lead a team too. So that's a great recipe. A lot of people think it's a recipe for disaster, but when I heard it, I was like, that's a great move. I didn't see it coming out of there, but the only thing else that they need to do, go on the draft, get a Sam Hartman or somebody to come in there and have him just have that whole mixture of just like guys that want to battle all the time. Because I think if Trevor knew that his job at any given time, he could be benched and there'd be a good excuse if he throws in 3 interceptions in the first half, Mac's gonna come in. And if he wins the game, you don't think that Trevor's gonna feel the pressure the next week?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this. I mean, I just recently saw it that Gardner Minshew is now headed to Vegas.
Yeah.
Gardner Minshew's another one that can
I miss
honestly
him.
Good job.
He was Mac Jones. He was
Yeah.
like Jake. He was literally Mac Jones. Literally, we treated him just like Mac Jones got treated with the Patriots.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now look at him.
Yeah, and honestly, and that's going to be really exciting for the Raiders because they are clearly going to end up taking a quarterback. Now, do I think like again, nothing against Jaden Daniels. I think he's a really good quarterback. He could run. I think sometimes we kind of, overuse or sweep under the rug some of his running ability, but we have seen him when he hits those hard hits and cannot hold on the ball. That's questionable for me. But I looked at the Raiders and I'm like, are you sure you're willing to take a gamble at another LSU quarterback? Because we remember one of them that they took in the first round, and that didn't go over well. But
yeah, Antonio Pierce really loves Jaden Daniels, though. They tweet about it all the time, and it's if he's there, I don't see in a reality that they don't take him.
So my question to you is quick. Out of all these quarterbacks, because there's tops, who do you think, well, I shouldn't even say this. I know you've got Bo Nix on your radar. I mean, you've been ranting and raving about him, so I know that that's your top pick.
Love him.
But who do you think is honestly going to be the bust? Because I'm going to give you mine. I honestly think that if Drake May doesn't end up going to a team that has a left tackle, he could be a bust. Your breakdown video literally was the evidence that I had of like, you better give me a left tackle then. Because if I don't have one and I draft Drake May, that is spelling trouble. He's going to be stiff as a stone, and I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Boom. You hit it on the head. It's Drake May. I don't see what people see in Drake May, man. I don't. He sits there in the pocket, will get hit and still throw a ball. You're going to cause an interception or a fumble for your team. That's not good. Yeah. He tries to play hero ball all the time. You don't have to be a hero. I mean, it does. Yes, a lot of the blame deserves to be on Tez Walker, and people blow him up too, which he's the bust wide receiver for me right now too. It's those two. They played on the same team, and I think they're both going to be bust. Love Tez Walker's story, but Drake May, I don't see the arm strength. I don't see the accuracy. I don't see the reads downfield. I don't see any of that stuff. I mean, I literally have people all the time that are like, "You're crazy." Well, show me. Show me consistency, because saying that he can
holds onto the ball too long. I do think
absolutely too long.
Yes.
He will throw a 25-yard bomb, and then the next 10 plays he would be mid. It's like there's no consistency here. So this is not baseball where you can have a batting average of 299 and still be looked at as one of the best batters, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a baseball guy at all, but I know they fail more than they succeed at batting, right?
Oh yeah, it's tough. Look at the quarterback baseball.
You can't do that in the quarterback position. If 1 out of every 10 throws is a heater, that doesn't make you good, especially in college when you got Bo Nix and Mac Jones, who are the most efficient at a 77.2 completion percentage all time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to throw the ball 55 to 65%, somewhere in there as your completion percentage. And 1 out of 10 times doesn't give me the confidence that you're going to be able to make those throws in the NFL. That's just analytics, but you saw the film, like,
oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like, look, I could differ myself from what analytics is telling me, and this is one of the strongest traits I always have when it comes to this. And people get pissed at me. I get bashed for this a lot, but it's because you're also dealing with a guy who knows about analytics. Okay, analytics is one thing. It's cute, it's new, it's generational, but if you look at analytics, if you watch the game, you watch the film, take a closer look. That is where you're really going to find the unspoken truths. I think he holds the ball on too long. I think because, again, you better get that ball out of your hands by the times between seconds 1 through 4 start. Because by that point, my pocket is going to start to collapse between then. So if I don't have the ball thrown and I don't have a decision, I'm going to get sacked. And at the same time, you got to hold on to that ball. You better, by the time you get hit, but you better start to get that ball distributed as quick as possible. But the other thing, I mean, I watched Justin Herbert is a perfect example. Pocket quarterback, but at the same time, he knows when danger's coming, he's going to move a little bit and throw that rocket as hard as he can. He can. Yeah. That's why I'm like, Drake May, if you put him in the right offense, he's got to learn that. But if you put him in an offense without a left tackle, And without the offensive-minded genius, it'll be bust. It'll be bust.
I hate to put that label on kids. You know me, Jake. I want all of them. I want all of them to
I
to
want
do
all of them
well.
to succeed so bad.
I want them all to do incredibly well at the next level. Man, I see what I see on film. Now it's like the Ivan Pace thing last year. A lot of people tried to drag me down. I'm like, okay, if I was totally wrong about Ivan Pace, then why did he go undrafted?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what he did in his career after that. He had an incredible year with the Vikings, but you also went to Brian Flores. That the things that I pointed out that were good could be a missile, can be lazy at times, very good in coverage. He was able to spread that all out and say, "Look, we're going to work on the things that you're not good at." And he was one of the best rookie linebackers. I can only evaluate what I see on film.
Yeah.
I can only predict what I seen there. But he went undrafted for a reason, and Dante's not so crazy for thinking that. But if he ends up being a great player, I've already pointed out the things that he does well too. So it's like, when people do analysis, they only speak about one side a lot. I like to speak about both. That's why, like with the JJ McCarthy thing, I told you the bad, I
One-dimensional.
told you the good.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so I want them all to do well. But Drake just got that. He's one of those ones, man, that what's his name? I had a podcast the other day. Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy during the combine was having a breakdown of play. Yeah, all the X's and O's stuff seems so good on the chalkboard when you're talking about it. You're supposed to know that stuff, Drake. Like, we can't kid ourselves here. You're getting asked these same questions by dudes that are going to draft you. You should be the field general. You should know everything between the X's and O's.
They want to know
impress me.
they want to know what's your study, like what's your study capacity. At the same time, can you also play off script? Because a lot of times when you get contested, people are going to want to say, what is he hiding under his sleeve? Does he have a plan? Does he have a plan B? You don't have a plan B, you're screwed. And again, and here's what's funny, and it's a perfect example of Colt McCoy. Could you imagine Colt McCoy did not go to Cleveland? Honestly, I wish he would have been a Houston Texan because he knows the style of offense. He knows exactly how an offense is meant to be ran, but at the same time, he had a better offensive line and Colt McCoy who can run out that pocket. And for somebody who's like literally a gunslinger, Colt McCoy would have been very successful. I mean, I have so much respect for him because I do think he's a very quality backup. But again, I could not have imagined if he went to like a Houston or a Dallas or or even a Philly. I mean, good God, Colt McCoy would have had a totally different upbringing.
I love Colt, man. I really do. I think he's been a great backup, and he has a pretty decent career. I mean, when you go look at his career over time, like he's been fairly well. He'll win you a couple games, but Colt, we gotta stop with this podcast stuff. You putting draft bust on there, and like they should be doing this stuff, man. They should know the playbook and things like that. But does it translate between the ears when you're in that pocket and things got to happen? I don't. You could be as smart as you want to, but if your brain is running at 1 mile per hour instead of 100 like it should be when the play starts, doesn't that's like me, Jake. Like I know about all the stuff between the X's and O's. Can 34-year-old Dante get in the pocket right now and probably sling the rock in the NFL offense? What you placing your bets on? No. The smarts don't matter.
But you know what's funny though? I mean, out of all of America, it's like we all feel like we're optometrists all of a sudden. And I have to be literally America's just honest and balanced personnel here. Like, because it's just like, look, I don't like being one-dimensional. I tell my wife this all the time. I don't like living my life one-dimensional. I want to be multi-dimensional because I basically want to be like that prism. You shine one light on me and several colors come out. I want to be that. That's a perfect example because that is very different. There's totally different traits I'd love to carry. But man, it's so good chopping it up with just these analysis and just these outlooks of a lot of these quarterbacks, man. That's why I love and respect the work you guys have put in. I mean, from the scouting combine to the Senior Bowl and and especially your college players breakdowns. Absolutely fantastic. Well done. And that's why I'm like, if guys, you want to learn and you guys want to get smarter at learning how to break down players like from draftees to, NFL caliber players, go and check out East Coast Gridiron. They got all the best stuff. They know how to break it down. They give you a little bit of some sneaky stuff as well, like from just, the pros and cons, all the great stuff there at East Coast Gridiron. Dante, appreciate you coming on by, man. Thanks for taking the time. We'll definitely see you soon. I've been pointing on the calendar, man. This year, New Orleans is on my calendar, man. I'm telling you, I'm really working that hard to, at the very least, get into Media Row at New Orleans.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You let me know, man. And I'll try to meet up with you. We've gotten access to so many different things with, like you said, we've been putting in a lot of hard work and with a lot of hard work and dedication to this. I mean, man, I try to do as much as I can behind the scenes. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate it. Jake, you're one of my favorite guys to talk to for sure. So if you invite me back, I'll be there. I know you just messaged me. Hey, can you come on today or Wednesday? I said, let's do it today. I'm ready to talk.
You know me. I just know that like when I need a personnel that has done this stuff, I've got my emergency call. I know exactly who I'm calling. Speed dial. I'm like,
oh yeah, put it in the phone. I'm there.
All right, man. Take care of yourself, and we'll definitely see you soon.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Jake.
You bet. Yeah, man. I mean, great stuff. East Coast Gridiron. They've been. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you guys like, follow, and subscribe to get the latest from the show. Also, go check out a few of our coolest segments that we've had from previous shows. And also make sure that you stay up to date on the show on all platforms, wherever you guys find your podcasts.